All right, so everyone get ready, because today on the deep dive, we're going to explore the world of online payment processors.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
It is. It is. We're specifically looking at alternatives to the big names you always hear, Stripe and PayPal.
Makes sense. Yeah. Those are kind of the default for so many.
They are, but for our listeners who maybe have run into some issues with those platforms or are just curious what else is out there, this deep dive is for you.
All right, I'm hooked already.
Our source this time went deep. They spent 6 months researching and even testing these alternatives.
Wow, 6 months. Okay, so they really did their homework.
They did, and what's interesting is they started out looking for like a direct Stripe replacement.
Okay.
But they quickly realized there's no one perfect solution.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's probably going to depend on your needs, right?
Absolutely. It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
I like that, the right tool for the job.
And that means we got to understand how each one works.
Okay, let's do it. What's the first one we're going to tackle?
All right, so first up is a platform that our source actually called a last resort.
Uh-oh, a last resort. That sounds a little ominous.
It does have a certain mystique to it. The name itself is Explodely.
Explodely. Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
It's definitely not as mainstream as Stripe or PayPal.
Gotcha. So when would someone even consider this last resort?
Well, our source found that Explodely is really best suited for businesses that they called high risk, high reward.
Okay, high risk, high reward. So what does that even mean in this context?
Think of businesses operating in niches that traditional payment processors might shy away from.
Ooh. Okay, I'm getting a little nervous now. Give me some examples.
Think adult content, gambling, maybe certain types of financial products.
Right, the stuff that makes banks a little squeamish.
Exactly.
Okay, so Explodely is willing to work with these businesses, but I imagine it comes at a cost.
You are sharp. And one of the key things our source pointed out is Explodely's refund system.
Refunds? Okay, how is that a cost? I thought easy refunds are a good thing.
On the surface, yes. But for businesses in these high-risk niches, easy refunds can actually be a bit of a double-edged sword.
Okay, how so?
Well, if your product or service doesn't quite live up to the hype.
Sure.
Or maybe you're dealing with a higher rate of fraudulent transactions.
Right, that makes sense.
Those easy refunds can really eat into your profits.
Yeah, you're essentially making it easier for people to, I don't know, take advantage.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. You get access to a platform that's willing to work with you. But you also take on the risk of those higher refund rates.
Okay, so that's one thing to watch out for with Explodely. Anything else?
There's another factor to consider. Conversion fees.
Ah, yes, those pesky fees.
Explodely, they only pay out in US dollars.
Okay.
Which means if you're selling in other currencies, you're going to get hit with those conversion fees every time you withdraw.
And those can really add up, especially if you're dealing with international customers.
Exactly. Especially if you have a lot of transactions happening outside the US.
All right. So Explodely, potentially a good option for certain businesses, but definitely some caveats to keep in mind.
Exactly. It's a viable option, but you got to go in with your eyes wide open and understand those potential downsides.
I'm taking notes. So far, it sounds like choosing a payment processor is a lot like choosing, I don't know, a business partner or something.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
You need to make sure your values and risk tolerance are all aligned.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, speaking of finding the right fit, let's move on to a platform that our source was actually quite impressed with.
Okay, I'm always up for hearing about the good ones.
This one's called Octus Pay.
Octus Pay, okay, that one's new to me.
Yeah, it's not as well known as some of the other alternatives.
So what makes it so special?
Our source was really impressed with their low chargeback fees.
Chargebacks, ugh, those are the worst.
Tell me about it, but Octus Pay seems to have a really robust system for preventing them.
Okay, so for our listeners who aren't familiar, what exactly are chargebacks and how does Octus Pay help with that?
So a chargeback happens when a customer, they dispute a transaction with their bank or credit card company.
Right, essentially a forced refund.
Exactly. And it's a headache for businesses.
Because not only do you lose the sale, but you often get hit with fees from the payment processor too.
You got it. And too many chargebacks can actually damage your reputation with processors, make it harder to get approved for accounts in the future.
Oh, wow. So it's a bigger deal than just losing that one sale.
It really is. Now, what sets Octus Pay apart is their fancy system for detecting and preventing those fraudulent transactions.
So they're trying to stop the chargeback before it even happens?
Precisely. They're using these advanced algorithms and even machine learning to analyze transactions in real time, flagging anything that looks suspicious.
Wow, that's impressive. It's like having a virtual bodyguard for your business.
I love that, a virtual bodyguard.
Yeah.
And our source mentioned that Octus Pay has a clean, modern interface, which is always a nice bonus.
Yeah, user experience is so important, it can make or break a platform.
Absolutely. But there is one potential limitation. Octus Pay currently only offers payouts through Payoneer.
Oh, okay. So that could be a deal breaker for some businesses who aren't set up with Payoneer.
Definitely something to consider. But our source did hint that Octus Pay might be expanding into Europe soon.
Ooh, expansion plans are always exciting. It shows they're ambitious and looking to grow.
Okay, so we've got Explodely for the high-risk ventures, Octus Pay for those seeking that robust chargeback protection.
What other intriguing alternatives did our source dig up?
All right, so there's one platform that takes a very different approach.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
And it revolves around this concept called merchant of record.
Merchant of record? I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one. Can you break it down for us?
Absolutely. Basically, a merchant of record acts as an intermediary between you and the actual payment processor.
So instead of setting up my own merchant account with Stripe, I would go through this intermediary.
Exactly. It's like having a middleman handle all the nitty-gritty payment processing details.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be beneficial.
The platform we're talking about is called Fanbasis, and they actually use Stripe on the back end, but they act as a merchant of record for their users.
So what are the advantages of going this route?
One of the biggest advantages is risk mitigation. Fanbasis, as a larger and more established entity, they have a better chance of staying in good standing with processors like Stripe.
So it's like I'm piggybacking on their credibility.
You got it. And it can be really appealing for businesses that maybe have had trouble getting approved for their own merchant accounts in the past.
That makes sense, maybe because of their industry or something.
Exactly. It's like getting a cosigner for your payment processing.
All right, so there's got to be a catch, right? Nothing's perfect.
You're right. There are always trade-offs. In Fanbase's case, one downside our source highlighted is the lack of true one-click upsells.
Okay, and for people who aren't familiar with e-commerce lingo, why is that a big deal?
So imagine you're selling an online course, and at the end of checkout, you want to offer your customer a bonus module.
Right, like an upgrade.
Exactly. A one-click upsell. It makes that process super smooth for the customer.
They literally just click a button and boom, they've added it to their cart.
Fanbasis doesn't have that capability, which can limit your upselling potential.
Ah, so you might be leaving some money on the table.
They do offer a workaround where customer info is pre-filled on a second checkout page, but it's not as smooth.
Yeah, more steps usually means more friction, and that can lead to lost sales.
Exactly, especially if upsells are a big part of your revenue strategy.
Okay, so Fanbasis offers that risk mitigation and the convenience of using Stripe indirectly, but it comes at the cost of those limited upselling capabilities.
It seems like it's always a balancing act with these platforms.
It really does. All right, what's the next contender?
Well, there's one more platform that our source explored, one that they had some mixed feelings about.
Oh, mixed feelings. Spill the tea. What was it called?
This one is Copcart.
Copcart, all right. What stood out about them, both good and bad?
So the thing that really caught their attention was Copcart's unique feature, weekly subscriptions.
Weekly subscriptions, huh? That's interesting. You don't see that very often.
Right. It's something you won't find on a lot of other platforms.
But how does that even work?
Instead of charging your customers monthly or annually, you could break down the cost into smaller weekly payments.
So it's like a psychological thing, making the price seem more manageable.
Exactly. And for some businesses, it could actually lead to increased customer retention because those smaller payments feel less burdensome.
Fascinating. Okay, I can see the appeal. But you said mixed feelings. There's got to be a downside.
There is, and this is where things get a little tricky. Our source was not a fan of Copcart's user interface.
Oh no, the dreaded bad UI.
They describe the checkout page as abominable.
Ouch. That's harsh. So you might gain the benefit of those weekly subscriptions.
Yeah.
But you risk turning off your customers with a clunky checkout experience.
Yeah, it's a tough trade-off. It really depends on your priorities.
Right. How much emphasis do you place on that smooth, visually appealing checkout process?
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dives.
Wow. I can't believe how much ground we've covered already.
We've explored platforms for those high-risk businesses, uncovered the secrets of chargeback protection, and even dabbled in the world of weekly subscriptions.
I'm ready for more. What's next?
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into these alternatives
Can't wait.
and help you navigate this complex landscape with confidence.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're really getting into the weeds now with these payment processing alternatives.
We are, and it's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. I'm starting to realize how much I just took for granted with those big names.
Right. You just assume they're all the same.
Yeah, just click buy now. You're done.
Exactly. But our source really emphasized this one thing that I thought was so interesting.
Oh, what's that?
They talked a lot about user experience, like the actual design of the checkout page.
Oh, yeah, that makes a big difference. You can have the greatest product in the world, but if the checkout process is a mess,
People are going to bounce.
exactly. It's like that first impression, If it looks janky, you might not trust them with your credit card.
Our source actually called out a couple of platforms for this specifically.
Oh no, who are the offenders?
They weren't too happy with Copcard or 2Checkout.
Okay, what was so bad about their checkout pages?
Well, I think abominable was the word they used to describe Copcard.
Oh, wow, abominable. That's pretty rough.
It is. So, you got to weigh that against the benefits.
Right. Those weekly subscriptions might be appealing, but not if it looks like a scam website.
Exactly. On the other hand, they did praise Octus Pay for having a clean, modern design.
Okay, good. Someone's doing it right.
It shows they're thinking about the customer experience, making it feel secure and user-friendly.
That's a good sign. All right, so what else did our source uncover?
Well, one thing that always gets entrepreneurs excited is fast payouts.
Oh, yeah, cash flow is king, especially for smaller businesses.
Absolutely. And our source seemed really happy with fan bases on that front.
How fast were their payouts?
They claimed it was significantly faster than Stripe.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's got to be a big plus. No one likes waiting for their money.
Right. It's like your money's being held hostage.
And remember all that business days stuff we talked about?
Exactly. A delay over a weekend can really throw a wrench in things.
So if speed is your top priority, platforms like Fanbasis might be worth considering.
Even with their limitations.
Right. Always got to weigh those trade-offs.
Okay, let's talk about something that might not be as fun, but is super important.
Oh, no. What is it?
Chargeback protection.
Ugh. Chargebacks, the bane of every online business owner's existence.
I know, right? And banks can be so strict about it.
Yeah, one little slip up and they shut you down.
This is where some of these alternatives can really shine, though.
How so?
Well, our source was really enthusiastic about Octus Pay's low chargeback fees.
How low are we talking?
They were saying something like $10 to $15 per alert, $50 to $75 on Explodely.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a significant difference.
And on top of that, Octus Pay's technology seems really good at actually preventing those chargebacks in the first place.
So it's not just about the fees, it's about having that extra layer of security.
Exactly. For businesses and industries with higher chargeback rates, that peace of mind can be priceless.
Agreed. All right, so we've covered aesthetics, payouts, chargebacks. What else is there?
Let's talk about something that's crucial for a lot of business models. Recurring payments and subscriptions.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other ballgame.
Some of these platforms, like Copcard, they offer some unique features in that department.
We were just talking about them, right, with those weekly subscriptions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an interesting approach that you don't see very often.
It's definitely a way to stand out, maybe even make those payments feel less intimidating for customers.
Now, of course, got to remember the downside.
Right, that user interface.
But if subscriptions are your bread and butter, and you're okay with sacrificing a bit of polish, Copcart might be worth looking into.
Always comes back to those priorities.
Before we wrap up this part, there's one more thing our source emphasized that I thought was really insightful.
Okay, what is it?
The importance of human connection.
Oh, interesting. How does that play into all this?
It's easy to get caught up in the tech, the features, the fees.
Right, it all feels very automated.
But our source actually mentioned having direct contact with account managers at a few of these platforms.
Oh, wow. So they actually got to talk to a real person.
They did, and they said it made a huge difference.
Yeah, especially when things go wrong, it's reassuring to know you're not just dealing with a chatbot.
Exactly. That human touch can make you feel so much more supported and confident.
It's a good reminder that even in the world of online business, those personal relationships still matter.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the world of Stripe and PayPal alternatives.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. My head is swimming with all this info.
So much to consider. It's not as simple as just picking a name and going with it.
Nope, definitely not. So for our listeners who are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed right now,
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
what are some key takeaways they should keep in mind as they're navigating all this?
Well, I think the biggest one is that there's no magic bullet, no one perfect solution for everyone.
Right. It's all about finding the right fit for your specific needs.
Exactly. And your business model, your risk tolerance, all those factors come into play.
It's like, I don't know, finding the right pair of shoes or something.
I love that analogy. You wouldn't buy shoes without trying them on first.
And you shouldn't commit to a payment processor without doing your research.
Exactly. Read reviews, compare features, don't be afraid to ask questions.
And talk to other people in your industry, see what they're using.
Word of mouth can be so valuable, especially in the online business world.
Now, one thing that struck me throughout this whole deep dive
Yeah, what's that?
is how quickly things are changing in this landscape.
It's true. New platforms are popping up. The rules are constantly evolving,
It's like trying to hit a moving target.
which is why it's so important to stay informed and be adaptable.
Be willing to adjust your strategy as needed.
Our source's journey is a perfect example of that.
They started out with a fixed goal, but ended up with a much broader perspective.
And that's what I love about these deep dives. It's not just about finding answers
It's about opening up new possibilities.
and challenging our assumptions.
Speaking of challenging assumptions, this whole conversation makes me wonder if there's a whole side hustle to be had, like consulting on payment processor selection.
You might be onto something there. But really, this highlights how important it is to stay informed, even in areas we think we know.
Because something as simple as clicking buy now
Right. It seems so basic.
actually involves this whole complex network of systems and regulations.
And making informed decisions about your payment processing can make or break your business.
So for our listeners who are feeling a bit lost in the sauce right now,
It's okay. We've all been there.
don't try to figure it all out at once. Start by identifying your needs.
What are your priorities?
Then start exploring. Do your research. Don't be afraid to experiment.
And remember, you can find links to all the processors we discussed in the episode description.
So go forth. Find the payment processing solution that empowers your business to thrive.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of online business.